Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search.
Hello everyone and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, and for our third segment of today's show, we conclude our What's Next for CFP team segments with a very intriguing SMU Mustangs team headed into 2025. Another shocking CFP participant to talk about, as in their first year in the ACC, they were the ACC runners-up. And I really feel like what I said before, that first year was not a fluke in the slightest. And if you're a college football fan who is really knowledgeable, like Thomas Brissy, who I wish very well after his final show in GSMC, knows, SMU is here to stay. SMU is a team that has the money, the boosters, the talent, the recruiting prowess to maintain their status as the cream of the crop in the ACC. And when I tell you that they are returning one of the better quarterback rooms in the country, I'm not lying to you. They have two fantastic athletes who on their day can beat anyone in the nation together. That's how deep this QB room is. When you add in the fact that Rhett Lashley's been a brilliant coach, when you add in the fact that they have the money to build up this program, SMU's rise is coming. But maybe next year they might regress to the mean because the ACC is going to get tougher, obviously. Carson Beck transferring to Miami. A lot of teams like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech trying to have a bounce-back season, rising as well. But ultimately, SMU is a program that I believe can build on this season. So let's talk about what they're going to look like next year and how it can contribute to their ascension up the college football ranks and how they will profile in the years to come, because I truly think an SMU surge is coming. Let's talk about, the depth of this QB room. The good news for a lot of SMU fans is that both of your QBs return, which can't be said for a lot of these low-profile schools in the CFP. I know we talked about Boise State and Maddox Madsen returning, but look, Cordis Rourke left. A lot of even elite college football teams are replacing their quarterbacks, but SMU is returning two elite college football quarterbacks. Kevin Jennings returns after an incredible season, but remember, he wasn't even the starter. The starter in 2024, who to start out the season was Preston Stone, a 5-star recruit for SMU, who unfortunately hit a wall at the midway point of the season and led to Kevin Jennings supplanting him as the starter. But ultimately, the fact that both of these guys are returning is absolutely incredible to behold. Let's talk a little bit about a funny story about Preston Stone. Not necessarily funny in terms of SMU's profile now, but potentially back then. Over the past 4 recruiting cycles, the only ESPN 300 signee that the SMU Mustangs signed was in fact Preston Stone, who's now the backup quarterback, if you can believe it. Not this time. This year, they have 3 ESPN 300 signees, and they all can contribute pretty mightily. Now, one of the problems that I noticed in their lone CFP game against Penn State was, yes, the inclement weather not helping them out, but also how their offensive line performed, especially in the red zone. Kevin Jennings is apt to create out of structure. He's always going to try and create a big play down the field. And in order to do that, you need an offensive line to supplement him. So, I do feel that the signing of Dramad Odoms, an offensive tackle, is the highest rated of all these ESPN 300 recruits that SMU are bringing in this year, does spell nicely for SMU. But then, what's really, really, really intriguing about this ESPN 300 class for SMU is that they got a third dual threat quarterback. Now, Preston Stone, I don't necessarily think of as a dual threat guy. He's a purely pocket passer who relies on his arm strength and accuracy. But getting a guy like Ty Hawkins, flipping him in fact from in-state, not necessarily rival, but in-state TCU, who you are playing this season, is pretty incredible to behold. So you have 3 quarterbacks, 2 dual threat, 1 pocket passer who was a former 5-star recruit who can go out there and potentially win you a football game. That cannot be said of the Boise States and Indianas of the world. So if I'm an SMU man, I'm really thrilled that I have 3 exceptional quarterbacks in my quarterback room. But ultimately, perhaps the hugest signing for SMU is another in-state guy, Dalen Singleton, a wide receiver who I really like and can really contribute to this team, because I believe that running back Brashard Smith, who is a perfect complement to a guy like Kevin Jennings, is declaring for the NFL draft. Correct me if I'm wrong, any SMU fans out there, but Dalen Singleton really adds an intriguing element to this offense. He totaled 115 catches, 2,143 receiving yards, and 28 touchdowns in his final 2 seasons at DeSoto High School. So getting an in-state guy of that caliber has to excite a lot of passionate SMU fans, and especially a lot of boosters along the way. So ultimately, from the Mustangs going from signing only 1 ESPN 300 recruit, who's now your backup quarterback over the past 4 recruiting cycles, to being able to sign 3 after their first ever CFP appearance, is quite appealing to hear for the SMU fan base. But let's talk about how they've amplified their status as a transfer portal destination. I feel like SMU is an intriguing school because they are in the state of Texas, a big factory pipeline for not just, recruits, but transfer portal guys as well. And the fact that SMU is one of 2 Texas schools in the CFP really ignited the fuel of going to a state like Texas, playing for a Texas school. And even though SMU is not on the level of Texas just yet, they are getting there. And it's showing in how well they've been able to recruit and how many players want to come play for Rhett Lashley in this very intriguing program in the ACC. And I feel like what I really love about this particular recruiting class from the transfer portal, specifically for SMU, is that it really bolsters all the needs I feel SMU are targeting very specifically. So, for example, like I said, I was really let down, if I'm an SMU fan, by that offensive line's performance in that game against Penn State. Inclement weather be damned. So, what do? We add 2 centers with starting experience with Addison Nichols from the SEC, specifically Arkansas, and Joshua Bates Oklahoma, to really bolster this offensive line and give Kevin Jennings that much more protection to do whatever he wants back there. And then on the defensive side of things, you don't necessarily have a big profile player, a high profile star. You had Isaiah Nwokobia, who had a decent year, but I think he's also going to the NFL draft, and you really need to supplement a lot of different depth pieces on your defensive front. So you add linebackers Akai Barber out of East Carolina, and a redshirt freshman for that matter, defensive back Chasen Johnson as well, and you could still be in for USC transfer defensive tackle Bear Alexander, although I think he might have gone somewhere else because I did write this many weeks ago. Ultimately, you're doing everything you need to target the areas of need for this team. I feel like now, heading into another year in the ACC, you're more than prepared for the challenges ahead. And so, I feel like with all these additions, especially in the offensive line, I really like how Jamad Odom's profiles as a 6'6", 305-pound tackle. I feel like you now go into your second year in the ACC saying, okay, we exceeded expectations in year 1. We know we need to address, and we're not going to be afraid of anyone. And despite the fact that the ACC is attracting attention, not just on the field, but off the field, with all the transfers, with all the talks about new deals for media rights and things of that nature, I feel like SMU transcends that noise at this point in time. They're really focused on not just being a one-and-done team. They're focused for the future and beyond. And I feel like a lot of teams in the ACC are going to be a little bit stuck in their ways, thinking that they're still amongst the elite, when in fact that could be far from the truth. Clemson, we talked about them. Yes, they're dipping their feet into the transfer portal, but they're still, as long as Dabo Swinney is there, going to be a very much in-house team. Miami, yes, they have a lot of talent. It's a very appealing destination spot for transfers, and that might be the reason why Carson Beck forgoed the draft and went there. But ultimately, you can't keep on doing that year after year and hoping that a transfer QB can get you over the hump. So what I like about what SMU is doing in the ACC is that they've now got perhaps the deepest quarterback room, not just in the ACC, but in the entire NCAA. They know its deficiencies, and now they're going out and getting guys from the transfer portal that they may not have been able to compete for in recent years. So that's what I really like about SMU. They're taking advantage of being in a Power 4 conference, but also being a CFP participant in your first year as a Power 4 member. So that's what I really like. They're using it as leverage. They're using it to their advantage. And I know a lot of people might be skeptical of that approach, but if it works for them in the long run, then they shouldn't be. And that's going to be the way of the game for the next couple of years in college football. Whoever has the most money, whoever has the most appeal, whoever can recruit the best, whoever looks like the most appealing transfer portal destination will succeed. That's what SMU is doing right now. But how they profile next season, right? They can most certainly win 10 or so games, but they're going to have to really focus in on making sure that all of these new elements get integrated seamlessly. Because Clemson and Miami, like I said, they're not necessarily, the sexiest of elite teams, but they are going to be rejuvenated squads come next year. And then you're going to face improved Big 12 teams in Baylor and TCU, who are going to be no slouches, in my opinion, in 2025. So you can't underestimate anyone if you're SMU. You're still having to think about being an underdog in this sense. If you embrace that mindset and continue to overachieve, then chances are you'll be rolling in the money year after year. And that's what I think is going to happen for SMU in the long run. But let me know what you think of this SMU Mustangs team. I only think big things are ahead for them. And coming up next, to conclude a little bit of our college football talk here on the show, we're going to be doing a way too early top 5 power rankings for the 2025 college football season. It should be a good one right after this short break.